services. It's a lot.
The conference brought together relevant stakeholders from the survey and property sector. Among those who gave the welcome remarks was Dr. Rachel Nyamai, Chair Department Committee of Lands National Assembly, who noted that first and foremost, land reforms that have been put in place must be implemented.
The Land Act of 2012, enacted by Parliament, this is an act of Parliament to give effect to Article 68 of the Constitution, to revise, consolidate, and rationalize laws, land laws, to provide for sustainable administration and management of land and land-based resources and for connected purposes. We also have the Community Land Act 2016. This is an act of Parliament to give effect to Article 63(5) of the Constitution, to provide for recognition, protection, and registration of community land rights, management and administration of community land, to provide for the role of county governments in relation to a registered community land and for connected purposes. We also have the Land Registration Act of 2012. This is an act of Parliament to revise, consolidate, and rationalize the registration of titles of land, to give effect to the principles and objects of devolved governments in land registration and also for connected purposes.
GLT have been working hard.
She further went on to explain that this is the only way to attract investment and spur economic growth.
The actualization of the country's development strategy in land and property reforms relating to public infrastructure would be reestablished in Kenya, will reestablish Kenya as a jurisdiction of choice for investment and improve the ease of doing business in Kenya. Kenya's Vision 2030 development strategy is largely pegged on development of infrastructure, which is dependent on, among other factors, availability of land.
Poverty reduction or poverty is basically, synonymous.
With the Kenyan economy being infrastructure driven, the government has embarked on major infrastructural projects. However, Patrick Butcher, State Department of Housing Secretary, said one of the key challenges is commercialization of land, making acquisition very expensive.
In terms of land, we've realized land is making us, it is too expensive. Making provision of public utility, become very expensive. Things like the road, even about even issues of SGR. At the same time, it will also affect the housing delivery. And therefore, we are saying in terms of land management, we've really to come up with a policy and land management that really deters speculation of land. Because I think speculation and commercialization of land has made land to be very, very expensive.
To this end, PS Butcher pointed out that the government is leaning towards using public lands for development so as to make property affordable for Kenyans.
So in order to be able to provide the housing you're talking about, we are actually targeting use of public land for the time being, because government has a lot of land, both the county government, the national government, and even the state departments. You realize, like ministry, for instance, ministry, NYS has a lot of land, county government has a lot of land. There is a lot of the old estates that really need to be now renewed through urban renewal processes. If you look at Jogoo Road, for instance, they are old government houses, old county houses. So we need that land to be able to build more houses and build vertically. So in terms of really mitigating the cost of land and mitigating also the cost of final product, which is the affordable housing, we have to use public land to develop these houses. And even the county, when you go to the county levels, counties have already identified lands for actually housing development. And we are starting in counties, we are doing about 2,000 in each county. And in Nairobi, we have already identified public land to be used for the housing purposes, just for purposes of mitigating, the cost of land and making houses affordable, because the cost of land is quite exorbitant.
With the growing real estate sector in the country, Professor Paul Siaga said issues revolving around accessibility, affordability, and availability of land have to be addressed.
Land is fixed in quantity, and therefore we cannot expand it beyond what it is. We can only do certain technological regulations like planning to make us do more on land that is available. That is the only way you would increase the size of land. Now, if it is not available, then the issue of its being accessed is mute. However, the other condition for accessing it, even if it is available, is affordability. To what extent? How cheap is it? How manageable in terms of the cost is that land for you, again, to be able to acquire the quantity that you require for the purposes for which you intend to use it?
With day one of the conference done, the delegates have two things to think over. One, a total of 13% of Africa's arable land is unexplored, and two, there are only 4,500 people in the country practicing land survey.